Welcome. Most men don't talk about prostate health until something goes wrong. I'm guilty of that, to be honest with you. But the truth is, what you eat, how you move, how you handle stress can change everything. So today we're sitting down with two oncology nutrition experts to break down the real science behind protecting your prostate, boosting recovery, and living stronger at every age. Now, this isn't about fear, but this is about power. The power to make informed decisions and to live longer and stronger lives. Welcome to the If You Are My Brothers podcast.
So we have a confirmation with a second opinion that he definitely has prostate cancer.
I'm Reggie Hicks, producer of the documentary and outreach project If You Are My Brothers, and host of this podcast, the If You Are My Brothers podcast, Prostate Cancer Conversations. I want to welcome everyone watching on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and to those listening on your favorite podcast platforms. Later on in the week, we'll be dropping that on Wednesday. But we will be bringing on our two guests to talk about myths, truths, and what every man needs to know when it comes to prostate health in just a minute. But first, as always, a quick reminder that this podcast, again, is not a substitute for your medical team. Opinions and issues that we discuss are not a replacement for treatment. Always consult your healthcare provider for that. And remember, some conversations on this podcast can be of an adult nature, so we really ask you to listen accordingly as we journey together. Now, we call this series Prostate Cancer Conversations. So we invite you to join us. Join us in the chat with your comments and questions. Don't be shy. This is real life. And remember to like, share, and subscribe as we go on this journey together, particularly if you have someone that you know is maybe going through recovery. Maybe someone has been recently diagnosed or in the process of getting ready for treatment. This was a wonderful episode to really talk about health and what you can do before, after, and during treatment. Now, to learn more about the podcast and the If You Are My Brothers documentary and community engagement project, we want you to please visit us at ifyouaremybrothers.org. That's ifyouaremybrothers.org. Now, that out of the way, I'm excited about this because this topic is something that's always on the top of my mind is how can I get healthier? How can I get better as a prostate cancer survivor and then having a reoccurrence about a year earlier this year, having gone through radiation treatments, 38 of them, by the way, proton radiation. I'm really concerned about how I can keep healthy. Right now, my PSA is undetectable, which is a good thing, but I have to go back every month, every 3 months. And what I've been told is that radiation hopefully did its part. Now it's time to do my part, and that is make sure I can be as healthy as I can be, deal with inflammation, and really hopefully starve whatever may be left because we're talking about molecules when we talk about cancer cells, right? So I'm happy to bring on this evening Valerie Buckley, who has been a registered dietitian since 2013 and has worked in oncology since 2017. She graduated from Emory University with a bachelor's of science in anthropology and human biology, and she completed her master's in science in food and nutrition at the University of Georgia. Go
Go
Dogs, I
dog.
tell you. That's my alma mater too. I love it. Now, Valerie has a holistic approach to patient care, and she is passionate about working in the outpatient oncology setting, creating meaningful and impactful on the journey that her patients go on. So we appreciate you being here, Valerie. Alison Sturgill is with us, and Alison has been a registered dietitian since 2012, and she's also a board certified specialist in oncology nutrition. She completed her bachelor's degree in dietetic internship and master's degree through Murray State University in Murray, Kentucky. Allison moved to Atlanta in 2013 and has worked with oncology patients who were admitted to the hospital for chemotherapy, bone marrow transplants, and side effects of their cancer care, etc. She's worked in that area since 2022. She's been working in the outpatient setting, providing nutrition care and education to patients receiving radiation therapy. You know, ladies, we thought this would kind of be appropriate, you know, and talking about diet and nutrition as we enter into the season of food. So we got a week to go for that, and then you know we look forward to Christmas and the other holidays. And man, I tell you, so this is kind of top of mind for me. And I have a question, and either one of you can kind of feel this question. Like when men hear prostate health, what do you wish they really understood from the start, especially around nutrition and lifestyle?
I'll take that question.
Okay.
I think the first thing when you think about that is not to fear food, um, because over any diagnosis, but especially when you talk about prostate health, I think people start to fear food,
Hmm.
and fear what's going into their bodies, and then maybe go from one extreme to the other. And rather than doing that, I would encourage men to kind of take a step back and look at the bigger picture and say, sure, food is and nutrition is definitely one component, but what else, can I change? Exercise,
Hmm.
mental health, bone health, that will also impact my journey in a way that then everything else kind of falls into place and won't seem so severe or scary. And certainly nutrition is a big aspect of that, but then there's like all these other factors too that around
Right.
lifestyle that should also be considered.
What about myths and misconceptions you encounter about nutrition and prostate cancer? You mentioned the fact that some men, you know, was like, well, maybe I just shouldn't eat. What would I do? And but are there some that you know misconceptions of what men think they shouldn't do and what they should do? Um, have you all kind of run into any of that?
Yes, that is something we run into every day. The
Right.
first thing is probably the most popular, the first one I'm going to mention, which is, and this is for all cancer patients, something that they kind of hear from others when they first get diagnosed is that they need to avoid sugar because sugar feeds cancer.
Right. Right.
Um, yes, and that is so hard for so many patients because, like Valerie was saying, it can send them kind of from one extreme to the next. And something that is extremely important during treatment is maintenance of weight because
Mm,
it can help with mitigation of a lot of side effects of treatment. There's a lot of reasons for that, but going from one extreme to the next can just make it so hard for patients to eat and get the nutrition that they need. So we like to address that myth first and foremost. Sugar feeds all cells in the body, so not just cancer cells, and it will not make cancer grow faster.
mhm.
So it's important not to completely avoid it. It's always good to limit added sugars, right? We know that added sugars aren't the best thing for us. So
Right.
limiting those is important unless someone is struggling to eat at all. And then it's like, we just want you to eat what you can eat so your body is getting some form of nutrition. Um, but that is probably the most common question that we get. And then I feel like, especially in today's society, I feel like supplements have become a really big part of just
Mm,
like most people are on them in
mhm.
some way, some form. And so I think I usually get the question of, is there one specific supplement that I should be taking that is going to help with prostate health? And the answer is unfortunately no. And we actually there's a limited amount of evidence for supplements, and they're not well regulated. So there's not a lot to say that what you're taking is exactly what it says it is. They do have some third party testing now that's doing some quality assurance on certain ones. But I always tell people we want you to get those nutrients from your food first. So food first, and then if you are having some type of deficiency, then that's what we can look to supplements for. But there's not like one specific one that we recommend for any cancer patient or for prostate health.
Oh, go ahead, Valerie. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to touch on that. A lot of our prostate patients are on ADT therapy. And we know that bone health is extremely important for that. So your physician is typically going to be monitoring your calcium and vitamin D. But I do have a lot of patients who are taking supplements to promote the bone health and make sure we're monitoring bone density as well. So that definitely is one that I probably see the most. But in the setting of the ADT therapy, it's warranted and something that is pretty closely monitored.
And when you say ADT, what does that stand for?
I
Immune
have it written down
deficiency
somewhere.
therapy, right? Is that right? I don't
It's a
know.
hormone therapy. Yes.
It's a hormone therapy.
Right.
Androgen deprivation therapy.
Androgen
But yes.
Thank you so much. See,
But we always just
I'm
say
making
hormone
it up
therapy.
here. I
Yeah,
know.
I'm like, yes, sorry. And yes, androgen deprivation therapy.
Sorry to
Yes.
That's great. So I talk to men and they always say, man, I gotta have some pumpkin seeds and some, what is it, saw palmetto,
Yes.
that will keep the cancer away, or that will keep my PSA down. Do y'all know, have you heard that, or anything about those two supplements that kind of have been associated now with prostate health?
Yes, and Valerie, correct me if I'm wrong. I know there's some research that's been done on saw palmetto, but I don't believe it's enough to say, hey, this will definitely, work to keep PSA lowered.
Correct. Yeah. Very
Yeah.
low evidence. And also, I think saw palmetto comes with its own interactions. So, before anything, we always recommend talking to the provider and just making sure that it's safe to take with all the other medications that maybe.
Right. It's
are.
interesting because I was taking a supplement called NAC. It's something I can't remember, but I was taking it. It helps your immune system, and I started taking it around COVID. Because I saw somebody say, "Oh, you need to take NAC." But I know when I talked to my doctor about it, and they looked it up, and it was really not a good thing for me to take during my treatment. And that was the one thing that they said you may not want to, stop taking that. I never would have thought that one supplement would have maybe not be what I needed to take at the time. So I guess the main thing is, sometimes we know about the medicines that we're taking, right? The blood pressure and cholesterol and the things that we're prescribed from a doctor, and we take supplements, and sometimes we forget not to mention the supplements that we're taking. So what you're saying is it really is important that you have that same list of medications, which include supplements when you're talking about treatment, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, it's always important to mention to your doctor because, like you mentioned, there are some, especially with radiation, that because they're high in antioxidants. And the thing with supplements is they're in such higher doses than what we find in foods, right? So there's some concern that they could protect the cancer cells from the treatment itself. And we want that treatment to work as well as it possibly can because you obviously just want to go through this the one time and be done with it. So yeah, always mention anything you're taking to your doctor and care team.
Does nutrition differ during active treatment compared to like long-term survivorship?
Yes, it does differ. And the type of treatment you're receiving makes a difference too. So how Valerie was saying with the ADT, the hormone therapy, sometimes you need to take about vitamin D and a calcium supplement because bone loss is obviously something that we're concerned about.
Mhm.
Those medications also tend to lead to weight gain. So
Mm.
you have to consider diet for that. Whereas radiation, which is what I typically am, working patients that are getting radiation most often, things like the antioxidants we want to avoid. I know you were talking about the full bladder, so we make sure you have to stay really well hydrated.
Right.
We make sure that you're not eating a lot of foods that can cause gas,
Yep.
because where the prostate is located, if you have a lot of gas in your intestines, then that can kind of shift things around and make it hard for you to get treatment, especially if you're receiving a targeted treatment or a targeted radiation like proton therapy or CyberKnife.
Valerie?
Valerie.
Yes. And so I'm on the other side, right, where I'm seeing patients during either chemotherapy in later stages, or if they're coming in for like a Lupron injection, which the Lupron, just like the ADT, can also lead to some weight gain. So a lot of the patients will ask about healthy eating habits and what they should be doing. And I know we'll get into that a little bit later. But then the other side of that is other treatments that might cause side effects that inhibit the patient from eating. And then that's
Mhm.
when we kind of switch into weight maintenance, making sure their weight is stable, making sure patients are getting adequate calories and protein, and maybe not so restrictive, um, to where they are able to maintain and get the nutrients that they need, and helping treat side effects. But usually that's not until like late stage.
Right. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I read somewhere as we talk about weight gain, I know belly fat is just not good for anything. I was talking to somebody about it today. It was like, well, I don't know if it's connected to prostate health or not, but it's not connected to it's nothing good can come out of that. But I did read somewhere that it might be connected to, prostate health and is that the case, or we're just talking about overall men's health as it relates to belly fat? Um, and how can we kind of monitor that and really work on that without feeling overwhelmed
Yeah,
when we're
absolutely.
at
That's
home,
a that's a really good question. And as we age, unfortunately, we do
Oh yeah.
see that we tend to carry weight and gain weight in our abdomen and that fat tissue. Um, and that's what can lead to a lot of like chronic diseases, hypertension, um, poor blood sugar management, right? High cholesterol. And then if you're already on ADT, that can also lead to what we call metabolic syndrome, and that's like the development of all these chronic diseases. Then it unfortunately, then you have to start managing those things. But there is a lot of evidence that shows to decrease prostate cancer risk,
Hmm.
you really have to be careful of those inflammatory foods that can lead to some of these chronic diseases. So, for instance, foods that are high in saturated fat. We know saturated fat can lead to a lot of these chronic conditions, um, and cause increased cholesterol. And that's, we hold on to the fat in that area. So, and it also causes inflammation in our body. So, really watching out for those foods and trying to limit the intake of foods that are high in saturated fat, and trans fat,
Hmm.
and also red and processed meats. We know foods that are like red meat, especially, can also lead to inflammation, and the added sugars, right? So that's also kind of where that recommendation is to limit the added sugars comes in, because added and processed sugars um, increase inflammation, increase hormone activity, um, And the circulating hormones can also lead to chronic diseases and conditions. So limiting all these things and promoting what we call an anti-inflammatory diet is very beneficial to decrease the risk of prostate cancer. Now, I think your other question was, how is that attainable? Like, how can we
Yeah.
make
And
attainable
particularly,
changes?
yeah, with don't mean to cut you off, but particularly with the holidays,
Yes.
all the comfort foods, everything approaching. You know what, man? We don't stand a chance.
No, it's hard. It's really hard, especially because I feel, for me, the holidays are so centered around food, centered around family, and like we're all gathering. And I mean, from sun up to sundown, like I feel like we're just eating all the time, and you want to enjoy it. And again, it kind of goes back to like don't fear it, right? So like I would still encourage patients to eat what they like, but maybe, thinking about like portion control, right? Like using a smaller plate, or we talk about the plate method a lot as
Mhm.
dietitians. And by the plate method, I mean, if you look at your plate and it's like a circle, you want half of that plate to be a fruit or a vegetable. And then a quarter of that plate would be a lean protein. And then the other quarter would be a whole grain.
Mhm.
So if you're first of all using a smaller plate, you can help with portioning. And then if you try to like load up on all of like the veggies and then, still get some of the whole grain and your lean protein, then that's going to help you with a more balanced plate, to where, you can maybe have like a little sweet treat
On the
for
side, right,
on the
right,
side. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, and then exercising, trying to like incorporate exercising somehow into your holiday, right? Whether that's taking a family walk, right?
Hmm.
Or um, going to the park and throwing a football, or, trying to make it more active, because I feel like sometimes that's easier when you have like a buddy or somebody to do
Right.
some activity with. Um,
Yeah, take the
because
dog on a longer walk.
Exactly, yeah.
As
It's hard to
opposed to
find
right
that
around the house.
motivation, yeah,
Yeah.
during the holidays. And you never know with the weather, especially here in Atlanta. It could be 80 degrees for all we know next week, right? So,
Yeah, which
and if
is
that's
about
the
what it was
case,
today, right? Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so getting outside, or maybe even going, like, if you live close to Stone Mountain, like go to Stone Mountain, or do something outdoors. That can definitely help with the physical activity aspect of the holidays, and not just like sitting around and
Yeah. And let me
around the
say something
fire.
about the small plate to guys. Don't That doesn't mean, put stuff on a small plate and then go back 3 or 4 times. My wife has sort of adopted that whole small plate thing, because I know in
Hmm.
Europe they do that, right? So
Mhm.
what I have to remember is not to what I try to do is not to go back for seconds.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's and I've been good about that. And even during the holidays, when I get what it's on my plate, a little bit of everything. And to your point, with a little bit more vegetables than some of the starches. And I know mac and cheese is a big deal. Um, but I found that, a little bit of everything, and you can kind of, satiate that hunger, and don't go back for seconds. I mean, that maybe that's the goal for everybody that's watching now. Don't go back for seconds during the holidays. Try to, because you got cake, you got sweet potato
It's
pie, you
hard.
got a whole
Yeah.
bunch of stuff right coming
Yeah.
up next. So just kind of look forward to that. I know it's difficult. Um,
Yeah, I
Allison, you
Well,
got
was going to
anything
say,
yeah, to
okay.
add to that?
yeah, I was just going to say two other quick tips to speaking to your not going back for seconds. I know a lot of people will say, oh, I'm waiting until we have our meal to eat. Like I'm not eating anything else the rest of the day,
Ah,
which I
yeah,
think then causes you to kind of overeat when you eat the meal, because by that time you're starving, depending on what time your family eats. So
right.
trying to still keep to like a regular schedule to some degree, and eating something before you actually go to the big meal so that you don't,
Ah, right.
devour the big meal.
Agreed.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
tendency, I think, particularly around Thanksgiving. I'm not gonna have breakfast. I'm waiting for the,
Yeah.
and invariably there's always some issue where you think you're gonna eat at one and then it's two and then it's three, and then you're
It always
starving
gets
and
moved
then you
back.
yeah, you just can't wait to just dig in there. Um,
Yeah.
so now you had something did you anything else to add to that?
My other thing was also how Valerie said, save some room for like a sweet treat. Don't deprive
Hmm.
yourself either, because, going from one extreme to another, how we've talked about before, will kind of just make it feel unattainable, saying like, I'm not ever going to get to have sweets again. I'm not going to get to enjoy this with my family. We don't want people to be so restrictive that they're not enjoying themselves because food still should be enjoyable, right? It's a
Yeah.
big part of our lives. And so, for so many of us, especially at Thanksgiving and Christmas and all the other holidays, it's social. So
Mhm.
we want you to still be socializing and doing that in a way that's comfortable without overindulging.
Yeah, and feel bad about it. You shouldn't feel bad
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. And I would say too that if you have someone and this is really just in general, right? I mean, it's sometimes it's a team effort, it's a family effort, just to kind of encourage the person or encourage each other, not to sort of overeat. Particularly, my thing is if you can get through this without picking up 5 pounds, you've done well. If you can kind of maintain at least where you are. But I will say now, some people are saying that I don't have to do any of that. I just got to take the shot. So my question is, with all of the Wegovys and Ozempics and everything out there, how does that fit now into a cancer-focused nutrition plan? Or does it? Or is it feasible to? Or
It's a really good question. Yeah. So I think it's tough because you have to ask yourself, why do I want the shot? Why am I taking this? Right.
Mhm.
Because if you are obese and this will safely lead to a healthy weight loss, because there's such a thing as losing weight too fast.
Mhm.
Um, and if it's accompanied by weight bearing activity to preserve muscle mass, I think it can be done in a very healthy way and it can be very beneficial to patients, um, to decrease the risk of not only comorbidities, but also some cancers, that we know are driven by obesity. And so the issue with a lot of these is because the weight does come off very quickly, that the patients are losing fat but also muscle, which we want
Mhm.
to avoid. And then that makes it hard for them to maybe tolerate various treatments, whether it's radiation or any sort of other treatment. It makes it really hard when you lose that muscle mass. It can also affect bone health, which we know also is very important. So I think if it's monitored and done in a safe way where the patients are getting the protein that they need, the calories that they still need,
Mhm.
and they're able to exercise through that and really work on strength training and weight bearing activity, there's definitely a safe space for it and can be warranted, if it's used for that, method.
Are you all finding that to be the case where now people are coming, men or or your patients that you're dealing with, are either on it, thinking about it, and this is something that you have to address now, or you're not really seeing it much?
I'm certainly seeing it more often, especially typically I'm already seeing patients coming in who are already on it more so
Hmm.
than asking to go on it.
Hmm.
And usually our physicians are pretty good with keeping them on it as long as, again, avoiding significant weight loss, paying attention to their muscle mass, bone health, and also side effects, right? Like if we know there's like a lot of GI side effects,
Yeah.
around the injection, so monitoring that as well. I don't know. What about you, Allison?
Yeah, I've been seeing it a lot more frequently. And like Valerie said, it's typically people coming in on it, that they may have gotten
Hmm.
started on it before their diagnosis, especially if they had diabetes. So, sometimes we do have to stop
Right.
it, like Valerie said, if they're losing weight pretty significantly,
Right.
because we don't want that during radiation, especially. But I haven't seen as many people here trying to get on it. Like she said, they're mostly all already on it. And it
Already
can
on
be
it.
a great,
Yeah.
yeah, and it can be a great tool for weight loss. I mean, weight loss is hard. So sometimes getting that little kickstart can be great. But like she said, doing it in a healthy way, because there is unhealthy weight loss, and losing your muscle to where you're fatigued and, losing your strength is no way to go. So
Hmm. Hmm.
it can be a
And
great tool though, as long as it's paired with, still focusing on a healthy diet.
Mhm.
right. And it sounds to me that, you know, if you're thinking about doing it and you know you're going into treatment of whatever treatment you decided to do, it's probably better to kind of wait to get through the treatment than to start something. Maybe, I mean, just seems to me it make more sense to maybe I'll do this on the other end as opposed to starting right when I'm starting treatment for, you know, proton treatment or photon, whatever. Would you say that might be the better case, just overall?
I think just discussing it with your doctor is probably the first step, just
Hmm.
because it depends on whether the benefits outweigh the risks, right? Like
Right.
there may be a really
Right.
good reason that somebody needs to do it quickly, or now, and then they may be okay to wait though until after treatment, and the doctor may prefer that.
Right. So talk to your doctor. See, that's important.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go now to let's get off of the things that we can the shot and things that we can do to sort of bypass some of this stuff and talk about what we can do. Small habits. What small habits can create the best long-term benefit, particularly when we're going through treatment for prostate cancer?
Yeah, so like Valerie said, little things like starting to use a smaller plate, right? If you're trying to kind of cut back on portions or prevent weight gain. I always tell people too, it can be overwhelming if you're trying to do a diet change,
Hmm.
to kind of change everything all at once, right? So if say your diet is really high in saturated fats, we talked about how we know that that's not great for us. So starting with just cutting out maybe like one or two things that you normally drink or eat that are really high in those things. Like, for instance, like if someone drinks a lot of whole milk, that's really high in saturated fat. So starting with just decreasing that down to like a 1% milk if they can, and cutting back on the amount they're drinking. Little things like that. If we are not exercising, because exercise is so, so important, for so many things. I think number one, obviously it helps us feel stronger, helps with cardiovascular health, controlling blood sugar. But also, I think I find too, especially just for me, if I exercise, I don't have as many of the cravings for the foods that are like high in sugar, high in
Hmm.
fat. You get your body moving and you just feel better. So if you're not exercising, starting small, right? Like adding in a 10-minute walk initially a day and kind of increasing it each week, right? Like going up to 30 minutes, and starting with walking and then kind of increasing to something else that's maybe a little bit more strenuous. Um, but really just starting small and not feeling like you have to do it all at one time, I think is the most important thing. And also just patience, especially if you're trying to lose weight, because it can be a slow process. And I know it's hard for all of us. If you want to lose weight, you're like, oh, I want it gone by tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it takes time. So I think sometimes too, not focusing on the amount of weight you've either lost or what you weigh, but focusing on how you feel, right? So increasing activity to where you start to notice, like, I'm feeling stronger. I'm feeling like I'm not as hungry for these foods that I was eating before. I think sometimes that's a better place to start than looking at the metrics immediately.
Yeah. Some people say don't get on the scale right away. I mean, don't do that every day or every other day or every week. Just sort
Yeah.
of, because that can be, and your weight goes up and down. Um, so I have to ask you, as we said, real tip here. On the real, I guess, if I'm, I have a a millennial son, so I'm trying to, I'm trying to stay relevant. Uh, how frustrating is it? I mean, what you both are doing is just so important. But I just know that, man, but in particular, we are so hard headed. We just everything you're saying, I'm like, yeah, I got to do it. I need to do it, and and then we just sort of don't. And I know you have success stories. I'm sure, but how frustrating. I mean, to really get someone to get this. That's why we're doing this podcast, because we really want to drive home how important it is and what you can do to better your situation as you go through this prostate cancer journey. Um, how do you, how do you get past that, knowing that we just hard headed and we hear it. And I know y'all, the guys sitting there and glazed over going, yeah, okay. You give them a recipe and you give them a list of things, and then they go home and, eat potato chips and drink a beer. Um, so yeah, just on a personal tip, but how do you, what motivates you to kind of like, got to keep doing this, got to keep pushing this?
I think one of the things that's like really good about the outpatient setting too is we have this space to like really provide like individualized care
Hmm.
because um, Alison has said this, and I believe everyone is their own person. Everyone is an individual. We're all different. Every person is going through like a different journey. So, yes, you have prostate cancer, but no prostate cancer is created equal. So, I think
Right.
finding what works individually for every patient of ours is key. I feel like I'm a little detective sometimes because I get to like figure out like what's going on and
Hmm.
what their habits are and what their interests are and like what makes them tick to then hopefully give them the tools to make a change or like how they learn, right? Because all learning styles are different. And like, do I give you a handout? Do you like give me a food log and I tell you what I feel like you can tweak a little, right, with
Hmm.
that food
Hmm.
log? Because maybe men are a little stubborn. I don't know. But I think also if you've been doing something for so many years, it's so hard to change habits for
Oh,
anyone,
yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
for any adult, it's really hard. I think the food is medicine approach also is helps a lot because I think food is medicine. Like
Hmm.
what we put in our bodies
Hmm.
will either benefit us or hurt us in the end, right? So I think that approach sometimes is helpful to some patients with a little tough love.
Right.
I think having support is really beneficial if you have that support either from family or friends because if you have people asking you, hey, I want to cook for you or I want to make you something, you have the power to say, okay, great, but can you maybe make me something that has less fat? Or, I want to try a meatless Monday, so maybe leave out the meat. Or, I think down
Hmm.
south too, it's kind of hard because
Yeah,
a
I
lot
was gonna
of
say, yeah.
people
Yeah.
cook maybe with a little extra fat, with a little extra love, right? Um,
Yeah.
which in moderation, great, but that's hard to change sometimes, right? So saying, okay, well, how can maybe I make this recipe, but like tweak it in a way that again is going to have a little bit less fat or a little bit less sugar, but still taste good because that is
Hmm.
possible. Like eating healthy doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to taste as good. It may not taste the same, but it still can taste good.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because I've been in family reunions where I don't eat pork, but I was one time I couldn't eat. The only thing I could have was the salad, I think, because everything had pork in it, like the corn every
Yeah,
every
like the
everyone's like,
Yep.
does that have
greens.
pork in it? Yeah. Does that have
Yeah.
pork in it? Sure it does. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. I just have the salad and a piece of bread. But then they said, oh, we cooked that with lard. So it's just, but yeah, it's
No escaping
yeah,
it.
right.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, all
Yep.
right.
Mhm.
So much for that. Now I have a couple more questions. One is you mentioned support system, but what about a single guy? We address that a lot on this podcast. I mean, as it pertains to support, as it pertains to treatment, oftentimes we talk about the support system, the significant other that's around that can help and motivate.
Yeah.
So, what about single men that really don't have a support system? Maybe they really don't cook a lot, but they eat out a lot. Do you kind of is that how do you address that?
Yeah, it can be very hard for patients that don't have the support system, just because it is so much easier when you have someone helping you do it, right?
Yeah.
Someone that's sometimes when you're having to figure it out all on your own, that can feel really overwhelming and stressful, especially if you're someone who hasn't cooked a lot, and has eaten out more. And we know that unfortunately, eating out, most of those things are just going to be worse for us than if we cooked them ourselves. But thankfully, there are a lot of more resources than there used to be. There are so many like meal delivery services
Mhm.
and these services that
Oh
send you
yeah.
the
Yeah.
ingredients for things and talk
Right.
about how to cook them. Like I had a patient the other day who was just learning kind of how to cook. He's like, I've never really cooked, but like I'm on this journey to start eating healthier. And we were talking about like just trying very basic recipes at first, right? Things that
Hmm.
only needed a couple ingredients and you can maybe put it in the oven, like put it on a sheet pan. And I think that's where Valerie talked about sometimes she feels like a detective. We kind of are. We're like, what do you feel comfortable doing? What we have to kind of figure out what works for that patient because everyone is so different. And some people are also just so busy with like working lots of hours.
Right. Yeah.
And then when they're in treatment, if they're working and receiving treatment, there leaves, very little time in the day to focus on meals. So, just kind of seeing what a patient's situation is, what they feel comfortable with, and trying to find resources for them where we can, is something that we try to help with as much as we can.
Yeah. I never thought about it's funny because when I see the commercials about the food that comes, already like sorted out and measured, and all you got to do is like put it in the wok or put it in the pan, and I laugh about my wife and I were like, wow, these millennials and Gen Zers, they just don't know how to cook. But if you're single and if you're busy,
Mhm.
and you can order something where you can have it fresh, right? And have the ingredients that really help you, it makes a lot of sense. So I'm now a believer in ordering your meals that way because
It's very
I could see that
helpful.
working.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
I
even
could
I do
definitely.
it just for myself because I'm busy and I talk to people about food all day. The last thing I want to do is sometimes figure out what I'm going to eat. So if it's
Yes.
already at my
Yeah.
house, then I just have to cook it.
And I would think
Yeah.
meal prepping too would help. If
Yes.
you
Absolutely.
are, if you cook and you're single, or even if you're, you have someone in the house, meal prepping. My son and his wife, they do that beginning of the week. They meal prep for the week, and that helps too, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, I think
Oh,
you have to be really
definitely.
regimented to do that, and really like plan ahead because it's like with meal planning, you have to know, okay, like I need this and that, and sometimes really helps people as well. And I also, frozen meals have come a long way, right?
Hmm.
We're past the like hungry man dinners.
Oh, I remember
We've
those.
come a long, long way. Um, and there's even like local frozen meal options that are like cultivated by a dietitian, and there's like vegan friendly, high protein options, like
Hmm.
diabetic friendly options. So it's really nice now because you can really find them like tailored to what you need, and truly using like your dietitian. Like if you have a dietitian in your clinic and you're just kind of like, well, I don't know what, or I just like need
Hmm.
ideas, well, just ask. ask your
There you
dietitian. We
go.
probably have
Yeah.
a list for that, or like a handout for that we can give you to kind of guide you at the grocery store and at least help kickstart
your journey down the
journey. Yeah,
healthy eating and healthy living.
exactly.
So as we close out, what are like the top actions you want men to take away from this? The kind of the non-negotiables, if you will, particularly as we're getting into the holiday season, and those that are going through treatment, those that are thinking, kind of deciding on what treatment they're going to use, got to everybody from the beginning to the middle to the end. What are the takeaways you want men to figure out here?
I would say one of my biggest takeaways is, or one of the things I want people to consider is that, kind of like Valerie said, not all prostate cancer is created equal.
Mhm.
So really, meeting with a doctor and sitting down and discussing your options and what's best for your diagnosis. But also considering diet-wise what's best for your diagnosis, right? How we've discussed
Mhm.
that different treatments, you might need different things. And then I would say from there, just like encouraging people to go easy on themselves, right? Because I think a
Mm.
lot of times when people get diagnosed, they're kind of like, what did I do wrong?
Mhm.
And it's really just not that simple because, like you said, it's so like all of the things that can lead to cancer and prostate cancer, especially, it's much more complicated than you ate the wrong thing or you did the wrong thing. There's so
Right.
much about
Right.
cancer we just don't understand. So going easy on yourself, and if you're wanting to make big lifestyle changes, taking the time to do that, not feeling like you have to do it overnight. Just give yourself some grace.
Yeah,
Yep, and I
Valerie.
just want to say also knowing what resources you have and what's available
Mhm.
through the whole journey, right? Because um, you don't have to feel like you're in it by yourself, and that um, you, even if you might be single, you still have support from the clinic and other resources. And if there's like social support and like talking to a social worker, because mental health is so
Mental. Right.
important. And that's such a big component of the diagnosis. What sources are available for exercise, right? Like there's programs through the YMCA available
Mhm.
to patients, right? Things like that. Of course, dietitians, making sure you know how to like get in contact with your um, like support staff essentially. I think also is really important because sometimes I feel like patients don't even know they have these like resources available to
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And then support groups I think are great, and being involved in those, and um, being able to like access those like types of support groups.
Yeah. I would say, if you're wherever you're getting your treatment or wherever you're, going through this journey to seek out, what or what's available, particularly as you talk about nutrition, and ask if they have a nutritionist on staff, and if not, where can I go to? I mean, that's a
Yeah.
part of the journey. I think, we tend to focus so much on treatment. Um, that's the big thing on our mind. Once we're diagnosed, it's like, okay, what do I do? Do I do active surveillance? And then after that, do I do seeds, or like brachytherapy or proton therapy or
Mhm.
whatever? We really focus so much on that, and we jump into that, right? And we don't really, I mean, just from my experience, we don't really think about that healthy part of it. We just want to get through whatever it is to get the cancer out of us. But I think it's so important that you look even before you start treatment, to start thinking about nutrition and to start thinking about lifestyle changes, definitely during and even after, because like I said, when I finished my proton therapy, my mantra was, okay, I've done my part. You all have done your part with getting this back down to, undetectable level. What can I do? Now, on my part, so and a lot of that centers around nutrition and really being active in making those choices. It's hard. I'm gonna tell you, it is hard. But I would think as we enter the holiday, maybe this is the time to stop and say, this holiday season, I'm going to do it differently. Either you're going through treatment or you're thinking about it, and hopefully what you've shared with us. Now, I will ask if you all have specific resources that we can share. We can, send that to our producer, Danny, and we can make sure that those links are in our show notes that will be a part of this episode. So we would love to have any kind of information that we can share going forward. It would really be helpful. Any other parting words before we let you go back to the green room and all of our beverages and free foods, free food, healthy food. Oh, by the way, this is herbal tea, just so everybody knows. This is herbal tea. um but yeah, anything else you'd like to share before we say goodbye to you this evening?
2 resources off the top of my head.
Mhm.
AICR.org. Great, very patient friendly. They have a great nutrition section, lots of recipes, and it's research based, evidence based. So great resource, AICR.org. And
A
then the I'm sorry, yep,
AIC
yep,
AICR. Okay.
.org.
Hmm.
And then the Prostate Cancer Foundation, wonderful website, great nutrition section. They have great articles, and you can, as a patient, download their diet guide, which I think does a really good summary of all of our recommendations, do's, don'ts, exercise tips.
Hmm.
It's like an overall really good nutrition lifestyle guide specifically tailored for prostate cancer.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. And then
that's
one other one, there is a dietetic practice group through the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics.
Mhm.
Um, it's just for specifically for oncology nutrition. And on the website, I believe you can even look up dietitians in your area that specialize in
Oh,
oncology nutrition.
okay.
I'm sure not every person from every center is listed there, but sometimes it's a good place to start. And also asking your center if they have a dietitian on staff. But I do not remember the name of the website link off the top of my
We'll
head, but
get
I can
that.
send it to you.
Yeah, we'll get that from you
Yeah.
and make sure we put that in the show notes. Well, Valerie and Allison, thank you so much for being a part of this particular episode. I know it really helped me, and I'm going to make it. This is my goal to get through. First, I'm starting with a small plate so I can enjoy my sweet potato pie and and have room and just kind of stay focused. Oh, sorry, stay focused, because that's the important part. And just knowing that staying healthy during this journey is tantamount. So I appreciate you being here. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving and
You.
holiday season. And as I always tell people, don't eat too much turkey. All right. I know you won't. You both won't. So
No, I
thank you
have to
so much.
say, eat the
Yes.
rainbow. Don't make your plate one color. Eat the
Ah,
rainbow.
eat the
Yeah.
rainbow. I love
Yes,
that. I
I
love
have to
that.
put that in there. I will be mad at myself if I
All
didn't say
right.
that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Valerie
Thank
and
you so
Allison, for
much.
joining us on this episode of If You Are My Brother's podcast and sharing information that we really can turn into what we like to call health action. I want to thank everyone for sharing your comments and your questions. We will be getting to them. We're going to make sure that our guests get any information that you're seeking so they can reach out to you. And we hope that this information was helpful that we provided. And it's always our goal to support others, with similar questions and inquiries. So for you, if you're watching, when you listen, always share. And as I mentioned from the start of the show, that we are definitely in this together, no doubt about it. Now, if this episode resonated with you, we ask you to share it, as I just mentioned, like it and subscribe. You can see it right there at the bottom of your screen. You can connect with us via email, social media, and even traditional mail through the postal service. I'm not going to call it snail mail. Oh, I did call it snail mail. But anyway, and you can also listen to past episodes at ifyouaremybrothers.org. That's our website, ifyouaremybrothers.org. And while you're there, sign up for our e-newsletter that comes out every 2 months. So we've got the November, December edition coming out in a couple of weeks. We want to remind you that If You Are My Brothers is a nonprofit 501c3 project dedicated to prostate cancer awareness and health action. And we hope you will support us in what we do. Now, we're going to ask Danny to put that all important slide up with options for giving. And if you're listening on our podcast, the link will be in our show notes. Now, when you make a contribution, you will receive your very own If You Are My Brothers commemorative mug. Thanks to the folks at Atlanta Brand Central. They've donated these mugs. You can see it's got our logo on it. Let me move my fingers out of the way here so you can see it. And we have one in black and white, but this one's in color. So we want to send that out to you as a thank you, and you can put your favorite beverage in that. Hopefully it's tea and water, right? You can also enter into a drawing that we have for a chance for you to win an original painting of what we call our Everyman logo. And it is it was done by renowned artist Cecil Bernard. You can see it here behind me in the background. That is an original oil painting. Now we're going to be drawing for that. Anybody that signs up for the newsletter, or if you make a contribution, or if you just contact us, we'll make sure that your name's in the hopper, and we'll be drawing for that at the end of December. Now, the audio version of this episode will be released next Wednesday. That's the day before Thanksgiving. So it's great to early Wednesday morning. It drops. It's great for you to listen, for you to share, and make sure that, maybe you want to send it to a loved one that's going through prostate cancer recovery or thinking about treatment. This is a wonderful episode to share. It'll be on Apple, Spotify, all the major platforms. And again, it's perfect for your holiday listening. Additionally, all episodes are archived on our YouTube channel as well. Now, special thanks to our producer, Danny Garcia Pozo, who's pressing the buttons and making all the stuff you see happen. Also to Zach Reynolds at Borkhouse Productions for our opening. And remember, this podcast is not a replacement for your medical advice. Always confer with your healthcare provider about your health. Now, next episode, we've got our next episode coming up Thursday, December 4th at 7 p.m. Eastern, as we talk about beyond the beam, what radiation really means for patients and the different approaches to radiation therapy. We have a series of programs that we're doing within the podcast where we're going to really look at all of the various treatments, from radiation therapy to even active surveillance, to prostatectomy, having your prostate removed. So we're going to really dig deep into all of the different treatments so that you can go back and maybe listen to the different episodes as if you're going through that treatment decision. And I can tell you've been there, done that. It is something that you want to have as much information as possible. And so we're going to discuss that, and hopefully you'll be able to join us. If You Are My Brothers is a project of Straight Street Media. You can learn more about Straight Street Media at straightstreetmedia.org. And you see it there on the screen. Thank you so much, Danny, for that. And it is a 501c3 organization. So until next time, as we always say, if you are my brothers, you will share this message. Take care, stay healthy, have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving as we enter into the holiday season. We appreciate you. We love you. We're here for you. And reach out to us at any time. And we'll see you next time. Peace.